Yo, what up YouTube? So today I'm going to be filming my first Photoshop tutorial. So this tutorial will be on how I actually edit my photos and my workflow from camera to computer and back onto my phone and to Instagram. So let's begin. So just like any other photographer, I would start with actually importing the photo from my camera onto my computer. So I shoot in RAW and some people might shoot in JPEG, but this tutorial is going to be how I actually process my RAW files too. So the strange thing about myself is that I use an older version of Photoshop. So if you have a newer camera, like if you have a newer Sony camera, you might actually have to download an additional app to convert those photos so that they're readable by older versions of Photoshop. But if you have the 2018 version of Photoshop or the 2019 version, you can just go ahead and skip this step to the next part of the tutorial. So what I normally do is actually go to my app called Adobe Digital Negative Converter. This is free. You can download it on the Adobe website and just find your source folder right here and your output folder. So I chose to save this in the same location. You can save it in a new location and choose a new one. That's up to you, and actually convert it. So for the convenience of this tutorial, I've already converted it. So this is the converted file. Open it up just like Lightroom. So this photo is already half edited, and what I've done is actually add a radial filter here and turn up the exposure to bring my subject out. And if I were to turn it off, you can see that the image is a bit dark, and so I'll just move it back in. And also I've turned the clarity up so you sharpen it a bit more. The reason why I don't use the clarity knob on the whole image is that it tends to become a bit grungy. I'll demonstrate this real quick by actually turning the clarity up, and you can see it looks like a really bad 2001 boy band album. You can see that a lot of the noise has appeared, the whites are overexposed and the blacks are clearly black. And other than that, there's not really much to do to this photo. One additional thing that I've actually done is actually turn the blues down, because the apartment block in that area is actually blue. And what I normally like to do is that, if you can see this part of the image, it's a bit grey, and I'm trying to make it a bit more symmetrical. And shout out to my friend Susan, she's the girl in this image. I'll prop her Instagram down below, so if you want to follow her, you can go ahead. And actually just turn the blues down. So once you turn the blues down, they disappear and the image just starts to look a bit more complete. And other than that, if you have a good camera, it would actually have the lens profile saved in the metadata of the file. So if I go here, you have enable lens profile corrections, and it tells me the lens that I'm using. So I'm using the kit lens. And the good thing about Photoshop and this tool is that if you can have a bad lens, and there's presets available, so you don't have to go and fix it. So if I were to turn this tab off, you can see that there's some vignetting in the corner and there's some fisheye. So I'll just turn it back on, and we can just hop into the full Photoshop app now. Open image, and so the photo is almost done because I've done most of the work before. What I like to do is actually like to just remove nuisances in the background. So like these two small car signs, I would use the spot healing brush. I'll remove it. I could remove this patch too. And this one's a bit trickier because the subject is right next to the thing that I want to remove. And how I would normally go about this, actually just use the clone stamp tool, which is just right here. So alternate to choose your area of interest to clone, and I would just go right here and just paint over the sign. So don't worry about the plot there, but if you really, because I would just want to get rid of the sharp edges here. And there we go, it just looks like a freshly plastered wall. And if I just want to even it out a bit, I can always go to the brush settings, choose a finer and softer brush, and just go ahead and just try to blend that in. And if it's not good enough, I can just go over with the spot healing brush, and it would just heal it up a bit. So there we go. If you zoom it out, it just looks like the signs were in there in the first place. And one interesting thing about the photo is that I really didn't plan this photo. There was just this fluorescent tube there, and since with like the subject's lit up already, we might as well just go and just emphasize that the tube's there a bit. And what I like to do is actually just add a lens flare, and I do this by actually adding a new layer. My bad. Wrong tool. Just adding a blank black layer, which I'm able to screen later. So if I were to turn my screen setting on, screen, and normal back on, and I would just go with my filter, render, lens flare, convert to smart object, and I would just choose whatever lens flare actually interests me. So this lens flare looks pretty good. Press OK, and what you see here is actually some I don't know, it makes the image look a bit artificial, and I normally like to remove them. So I normally just go with I go by clicking this layer here and actually applying a gradient to mask it out. So once I pull the gradient down, I sort of remove that, and if I turn screen on, it emphasizes that a bit, and I can always turn the opacity down, and there we go. There's a lens flare there now. And the thing about color correction is that I don't really do much with my photos, because I already like how the Sony sensors produce the color already. And another convenient way to do it, other than playing with saturation, contrast, and curves, because they're self-explanatory, it's actually using a light. So I'll go ahead and demonstrate this by going to Image, Adjustments, and Selective Color. So it's blanked out here because I'm not on my correct image. I can always click that and do that, but I like to make it a bit more flexible and actually go on Layer, New Adjustment Layer, and Color Lookup. So what LUTs do is that they remap the color science of the photo. So they are film stocks, and you can make your photo look a bit more vintage, a bit more modern, and Adobe already has like a small preset selection of it. You can always go online, go on Google, go on YouTube, and search free LUT download, and there's normally a ton to choose from. I'll just go and use the default Adobe ones. I like Kodak 5205 because it adds a bit more character to the image. It makes it look like I actually took it in a film camera, because it's a film stock. And if the LUT's a bit too strong, I would go on opacity, and I'll go down to 0 and slowly work my way up. And once I find that it stands out but it's not too overpowering, I call it a day, because you don't want to do too much, because what Instagram tends to do is also oversaturate your photo. So this really just concludes the tutorial, and the additional steps on how I move my phone is that I just save the photo into Dropbox, and that's about it. So if you really like this tutorial, I would actually honestly like to do more of these tutorials. So if you really liked it, subscribe. If you're interested in more things, just comment down below. So see you in the next one. Thank you.